Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a real giant on the world stage, China.
Right.
Officially the People's Republic of China, capital in Beijing. And the scale is just, wow.
It really is. We're talking, what, 1.42 billion people in 2024?
Yeah, exactly. And packed into 9.6 million square kilometers. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
Absolutely. And it's not just size and numbers. It's this incredible mix of landscapes, natural wonders, man-made marvels, and this really deep, varied culture.
Right. And then there's the economy, second biggest in the world, still growing, and its global influence. Well, it just keeps expanding.
No question about it.
So our mission today really is to get a better handle on China. We'll look at the basics, geography people, then dig into the education system, the economy, obviously, and wrap up with culture.
Sound like a good plan. Where do we start?
Geography. Let's do it. And here's a fact that jumped out at me right away. China shares borders with 14 countries. 14.
Yeah, that's huge. It really puts it right in the middle of things in Asia, doesn't it? Geographically speaking.
Totally. A pivotal position.
And historically, that's been so important. Think about the Silk Road, all that trade and cultural exchange happening because of where it sits.
Good point. Ancient history right through to today, really.
Exactly. And you've got this interesting contrast, too. It's the third biggest country by area, after Russia and Canada.
Right.
But number one by population, by a long shot. Vast space, but an immense number of people living in it.
That contrast really sticks with you.
Right.
And the land itself? Half of it is mountainous, mostly out west.
Pretty much, yeah. You've got some massive ranges like the Altai and Tian Shan up in Xinjiang Uyghur.
Okay.
And the Kunlun Mountains, huge ones just north of Tibet. The scale is just immense.
Right. And Tibet itself, the Tibetan Plateau, that's super high elevation, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The roof of the world, they call it, averages over 3,000 meters.
Wow.
And then south of that, you hit the Himalayas. Mount Everest, obviously highest point on Earth, 8,863 meters.
Incredible.
And it's not just Everest. There are something like 40 peaks over 7,000 meters in that whole Himalayan region connected to China.
Just staggering numbers.
It is. Then you've got the Yunnan Plateau further south, still pretty high, near 3,700 meters. And even in the northeast, around the Northeast Plain, you've got hills and mountains, the Khingan Ranges, Changbai Mountains. It's incredibly varied topographically.
So all that varied height, plus being in a monsoon region, that must mean a really complex climate picture.
Definitely. You get everything from warm and humid climates to really quite dry, arid conditions.
I saw the temperature difference. January average near -5 Celsius, July average around 26 Celsius. That's a big swing.
It is. And some cities like Chongqing, Wuhan, Beijing, they get seriously hot in the summer.
Right, so the sheer size and all those mountains really mix things up climatically.
Exactly. It shapes everything, farming, where people live, even local cultures.
Okay, so that's the land. What about the people living on it? You mentioned 1.42 billion.
Yeah, and it's officially a multi-ethnic nation. There are 50 single recognized ethnic groups.
56.
Though the vast majority, about 93%, are Han Chinese.
Okay.
But you have these 55 other minority ethnic groups, and they're kind of scattered all across the country, each with their own distinct culture and traditions.
That's a lot of diversity within one country. How do they manage that administratively? It must be complex.
It is. So you've got 33 provinces plus 22 major cities listed separately sometimes. Then there are 5 autonomous regions.
Autonomous regions. What does that mean exactly?
Well, they often have large populations of specific minority groups like Xinjiang with the Uyghurs or Tibet. They have a degree of self-governance on certain cultural or local matters, but ultimately they're under the central government.
Got it. Provinces, autonomous regions, anything else?
And 4 centrally administered municipalities. Think huge cities like Shanghai, Beijing itself, Tianjin. They report directly to the central government in Beijing, which is the overall capital, of course.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about religion? What are the main spiritual influences?
You see several major ones. Buddhism is very widespread, lots of different schools. Taoism, which is deeply rooted in Chinese philosophy.
Right.
Islam, particularly among certain minority groups. And Christianity has a presence, too.
And language.
Yeah.
Is there one common tongue?
Yes. Mandarin Chinese is the national common language. It's based on the Beijing dialect. So that provides a kind of linguistic glue across all the diversity.
Okay, fascinating overview of the land and people. Let's pivot a bit now to education. The system seems to reflect China's big ambitions, doesn't it?
It really does. You can see their determination to, meet international standards and really progress. They're investing a lot in different programs.
And attracting international students, too, it seems. Kind of like we see in Western countries.
Exactly. It's becoming a much more popular destination.
So what does the structure look like? Basic schooling through to university?
It's basically 3 levels. You start with primary school, that's 6 years, it's compulsory, and the state pays for it.
Okay, compulsory primary. Then what?
There's 6 years of secondary school. That covers both junior and senior high. But there's also a strong vocational track alongside that.
Ah, vocational options. How did that work?
Yeah, things like specialized secondary schools, technical schools, vocational schools, usually about 3 years, focused on practical skills for specific trades or industries.
Interesting. And then higher education.
Higher education is typically 4 years, lots of different subjects, and you find both public universities and increasingly private ones too.
And the quality of these universities.
Ah,
The information suggests that's improving.
definitely. There's a real push to meet the needs of students, yes, but also what the modern Chinese economy and industries require.
Right, aligning education with the job market.
Precisely. And that rising quality is a big reason why more international students are choosing China. The whole strategy seems very modern, very future-focused, aiming to be a global player in education and research.
That global focus is clear. It mentions international schools setting up there, like an Australian hotel management school, and into education.
Sure.
What's the impact of that?
It's opening up new pathways, definitely, especially, it seems, for students from nearby countries, like Vietnam is mentioned.
Why is it attractive for them, do you think?
Well, you can often study in English. The costs can be lower than, say, going to the US or UK. Plus, you get the chance to learn Chinese
A valuable skill.
and potentially use it as a stepping stone to universities in the West later on. So it's a compelling package for a lot of students.
Yeah, you can see the appeal. Okay, let's shift again. The economy. China as the world's factory. That label sticks, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And the numbers back it up.
Yeah.
Second largest economy globally.
Huge.
And its trade, especially within Asia, is a massive driver of growth for the whole region. Its influence on global trade is just immense.
Which makes it a prime place to study things like economics, manufacturing, logistics.
Absolutely. Science, technology, too. You're right there where so much of it is happening.
And the digital side of the economy seems particularly explosive. The growth rates are incredible.
They really are. Since 2016, it's been growing on average somewhere between 10 and 20% per year.
Wow, that's sustained rapid growth.
Yeah. By 2022, the digital economy was worth about 50.2 trillion RMB. That's roughly 7 trillion US dollars.
7 trillion. Just the digital part.
Just the digital part. And it accounted for like 41.5% of the total GDP.
That's huge.
And get this, between 2016 and 2022, so just 6 years, the size of that digital economy more than doubled.
Doubled in 6 years. That really shows the pace of change. What's driving that?
Well, government support for tech innovation is a big factor, plus just widespread adoption, people and businesses using digital tools for everything.
Makes sense. And overall, how stable is the economy looking based on the usual indicators?
The data suggests relative stability, actually. Looking at the period from 2013 to 2022, the World Bank figures show average inflation around 2%.
That's pretty low.
Yeah. And average unemployment around 4.6%. So those macro indicators look fairly solid, reinforcing its position as a major global economic force. There seems to be a level of effective management underpinning it all.
Okay, so a dynamic, increasingly digital economy. Now, let's move to the cultural side. There seems to be a real emphasis on holding on to traditions.
Yes, absolutely. Preserving traditional customs is seen as really important for, maintaining cultural identity.
How does that show up in daily life?
Well, you see it in the respect for traditions, even things considered taboos, around activities like building a house, doing business, weddings. It's about carrying those values across generations.
Interesting. And traditional clothing is mentioned, the zongzam or jiangsam.
The cheongsam for women and traditional outfits for men, too. They're seen as more than just clothes. They embody traditional beauty, national aesthetics.
Right.
And it's interesting how their styles have changed over time, reflecting how society and lifestyles have evolved in modern China.
So the clothes themselves tell a story. What about performing arts, Peking opera?
Yeah, Peking opera is a great example. It's hugely important for preserving and passing on the culture. The artistry, the stories, it's all a way of transmitting traditional values, history, generation after generation.
And food. You can't forget Chinese food. It's known worldwide, but incredibly diverse within China.
Oh, absolutely. The culinary culture is incredibly rich and varied. So much creativity. Exploring the different regional cuisines really gives you insight into the country's diversity and history,
It makes you hungry just thinking about it.
doesn't it?
Finally, Chinese New Year, the Spring Festival. That seems like a really core cultural event.
It absolutely is. It really highlights that deep respect for tradition we talked about. All the rituals, the customs, they're really cherished and followed carefully. It's a huge time for family, bringing joy and just reinforcing those deep cultural meanings.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We looked at the sheer scale of China's geography, its varied climate, the huge multi-ethnic population.
Mm-hmm. Then the education system, its structure, its ambitions, becoming more global.
Right. And the economy, massive, second largest set, booming digital sector, but relatively stable indicators too.
And finally, the culture. That deep connection to tradition and clothing, arts like Peking opera, the amazing food, and huge celebrations like Chinese New Year.
It's a complex picture, for sure.
Definitely. Which leads us, I suppose, to a final thought for you, listening.
Yeah.
Well, considering China's undeniable global influence economically, politically, culturally, how might understanding these fundamentals we've talked about, the land, the people, the progress in education and tech, that deep culture, how might understanding that help you navigate the world we live in now, an increasingly interconnected world where China plays such a huge role?
That's a great question to leave people with. Something to definitely think about.